Welcome to the family meeting. This is a show where we try to help you make sense of the headlines and the cultural chaos each and every week from a Christian perspective. Today, it's Kevin and I driving the train. So,
Yep. Mo is not here to keep us in line. So, good luck.
Mo's not keeping anybody in line. We're keeping her in line. Let's get into this because there's a lot happening.
There's
a lot happening. Okay, so let's jump into it here. Big Supreme Court decision yesterday. Big victory for parents' rights. Our friends at the Alliance of Defending Freedom did a big let's see if I can. No, I can't. Big case on counseling, and some people may remember that Megan Basham and I broke the story a couple of months ago about the head of the Biola Counseling Center wanting to protect the, how should we say, Kevin, wanting to protect the rights of, like, so what had happened was Colorado passed a law that said no conversion therapy.
Which is a broad term anyway.
What is that exactly?
Yeah.
Like, if I am a counselor, can I lose my license if I want to try to help somebody who is feeling uncomfortable in their body to become more aligned with their physical body and getting their mind and their emotions more aligned? Well, no, that could be seen as conversion therapy. Or if I have struggles with unwanted same-sex attractions, and I go to a therapist and I want to work on it, no, the therapist's job is to affirm me. Okay.
Yep.
And so a Christian counselor got in a situation where she wouldn't engage in the affirmation. And so it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the head of the Biola Counseling Center was on the side of the state of Colorado, which said, we're going to make quote unquote conversion therapy illegal. And Megan Basham and I both broke that story a couple of months ago on our respective platforms. And that person is no longer the head of the Biola Counseling Center. But yes, very happy. So, but a big story coming out of the Supreme Court yesterday. The decision was 8-1. Guess who the one was that was the dissenter?
I couldn't imagine who could it be?
It's your cousin.
Oh, Ketanji
Jackson Brown, Monique's doppelganger.
Yes.
Had the dissenting vote, but praise God. I think that's the third big defeat for the progressive agenda, trans agenda from the state of Colorado that went down in flames in the Supreme Court. Yeah, big victory, especially for Christians and for regular people who just want to get counseling.
Yeah, it's sad. Colorado has just become a hot mess. I was there two or 3 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago I was there, and just talking to people, and people weren't happy, not just with the political direction, that was horrible, but then like the crime in Denver, like the homelessness, like it had taken a California turn, and it did what progressive policies lead to. And so I'm not surprised that this was challenged out of Colorado because they're on the progressive train for a while.
Yeah. Someone said in the comments, oh, the non-biologist dissented.
Yes.
Ketanji Jackson Brown, who doesn't, she's not a biologist. She's not sure what a woman is.
Yeah. But I think it's telling that, the progressives are simply trying to force affirmation. You must affirm. Like,
yeah,
there's no argument. There's no, hey, let me help you overcome this. There's none of that.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it's
a
not a true
firm,
client-centered approach. Like if the client shows up and says, these are unwanted attractions, or I want to bring my soul into alignment with my body rather than the other way around, that the therapist can't help them do that? Like, really?
yeah. Well, even if they don't want to, even if they just come and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And the therapist say, okay, this is the approach we're going to take. Right. It's, they should be able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad the Supreme Court sided with that. Yeah, it's a win. It's a win for common sense, I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a short 1-minute clip, and then we'll move on from Fox News, from the gal who brought the lawsuit. She seems fairly young, but here she is talking a little bit about it.
I am elated by the ruling, and I am very excited for the kids and their families who have been simply seeking options in counseling, and now they'll get to do so.
Counselor, were you surprised that you even got the majority of the liberal justices to agree with you on something that should be so simple?
I wasn't surprised because it's blatant viewpoint discrimination, full stop, illegal under the Constitution, and it's not a left or right issue. I think it's also important to realize that when you base your laws on a lie, you have to censor the truth. And it's not just Colorado's law. There are about 20 other states that have these laws that say counselors can socially transition kids to identify as the opposite sex, but they can't let them live comfortably with their bodies. They can't help them to do that. The science tells us actually that 90% of kids that are allowed to grow through puberty, they'll be just fine. But over 90% of kids that are socially transitioned by adults, they actually will become lifelong medical patients. So this is a big win for kids and for free speech.
There you have it.
Yeah, she's right. She is right. It's crazy. They've taken something that even wasn't a thing, right? And they've basically built an entire ideology and moral position around it. Mm-hmm. And the only thing you're allowed to do is affirm. And like she said, it's just simply created lifelong medical patients. That's all it's done. It does not prevent suicide. It doesn't do any of that, you know? No. But yeah, we do know over 90% of kids, if you allow them just to go through puberty like normal, they will come out the other side okay. The gender dysphoria goes away. And many of them are simply gay, you know? And that's one of the reasons the LGBT community was having an issue with the T community because they're saying, they basically argue was this is a genocide against gay people, you know? And not saying that's not necessarily, more righteous or anything like that, but it just shows the dynamics of these kids aren't trapped in the wrong body or anything like that. You know, they might have a different issue, but if you simply let the natural process of puberty go through, then these kids will be okay, you know?
Yeah. In my interview with Linda Seiler, that's available over on my YouTube channel, we talked about this a little bit because Linda is somebody who has struggled with kind of gender dysphoria as a young person. And we shared a little bit about her journey and her testimony. And one thing that we talked about that is kind of the erasure of people like us who are tomboys.
Yes,
and
that's another one.
Yeah, if we were growing up today as tomboys, and when I was a kid, I liked to wear overalls and play football with my cousins and play with Legos and Lincoln Logs. And if I was doing that now, it'd be like, oh, you like boy toys, you must be a boy. Like there's just this crazy amount of social messaging. Whereas the social messaging when I was a kid was, you're just different. We call it now gender nonconforming, but back then people just said you're different. You'll outgrow it. You'll find your way. And I've been married for 33 years. I have 2 grown children. I'm living my life.
Puberty is amazing, right? A little girl who's a tomboy and likes to play football, all of a sudden hits puberty and likes boys and wants to be pretty and like it's just let
Yeah.
it. You don't
You
have
just
to
gotta kind
intervene
of
with.
let things take their course.
Yes.
And some people do struggle, but it's like, hey, I want to be able to at least have the option to send them to a counselor that can help them work through it. Now, Elizabeth is saying this might get shot down to a lower court to be re-arbitrated, to deliberate again. So I haven't heard that, but that's possible. So we'll see how that
We'll
plays out.
see.
Yeah. And the other thing that Linda Seiler and I talked about is that not all trans people come from the same issue. Like there are those who are like have genuine gender dysphoria, like Linda experienced as a child, and then there's those group of men who like to dress as women because they find it kind of,
it's a fetish.
Yeah, it's a fetish. There's a word for us.
Yeah.
And then the third category is kind of social pressure and social contagion of, this is kind of the thing that's popular right now. And so we don't want to lump all trans people in the same category, but helping people deal with these each of these problems in a unique way.
Yeah. Like I said, before this social contagion, the majority of gender dysphoria patients were boys, right? But in this social contagion, it's largely hit girls. Yeah. And one thing they have found out that a lot of these girls are really autistic. They're autistic and they're struggling, and they're grabbing
Venn diagram of the autism community is something that not a lot of people are talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's crazy, they're taking advantage of these girls who are simply just confused, and this ruling is going to help people actually help them instead of pumping them with drugs and send them to surgery,
All right. Well, let's get a little update here on the war. We're a
war. There's no war.
No war. There's a operation, military operation. Is that corrected? So some of the messaging that I'm hearing now, and that we're getting questions into the ministry, because I do want to encourage everyone to go watch a couple of recent special editions of the family meeting that I've dropped over at the Center for Biblical Unity YouTube channel and the podcast stream. And if you didn't know, this is a podcast too. So you can, if you missed the live, you can always catch it on a replay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you stream your podcasts. We upload it there every week. But we've had a couple of recent special editions with Kevin, kind of a crash course on geopolitics. He did one about how the Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, China thing all is really connected to China, and explaining what Trump is up to. Yesterday, we dropped another special edition on BRICS and kind of the more economic angle. So if you are just confused about what we're even doing with Iran, or why we're kidnapping Maduro out of Venezuela, go check out Kevin's recent conversations, and I'll try to remember to put links after we finish up today in the description. But let's get a quick update on the war, because I'm seeing and hearing from followers narratives like this. I thought this was a good kind of summary of what I'm seeing in my feeds. This is from New York Magazine. This was a couple days ago. Watch enough Pentagon press conferences and a running theme emerges. Pete Hegseth whining about media coverage in the war in Iran. Quote, "You're either informing American people of the truth or you're not." Defense Secretary fumed recently. "My message to the media is get it right." The media, of course, is getting it right. This war is an abject disaster. It's a victory for the West that the murderous Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is now dead, but little has otherwise changed. Khamenei's son is now in charge. The theocratic, autocratic regime remains functional. The U.S. troop death toll threatens to skyrocket, And the Strait of Hormuz remains throttled. Global energy crisis is already here. All right, so that's one of the narratives that I'm seeing over and over in the more liberal leaning feeds that I follow. What say you?
There are a lot of Hanoi Janes in the media. That's
You're
what
gonna
I
have to
would
explain
say.
who that is for the younger viewer.
Jane Fonda is an actress, and during the Vietnam War, she, went to Vietnam and basically became a propaganda shield for the North Viet Cong. And so, it's kind of like Tucker Carlson going to Moscow and have the Iranian president on and like talking about how great it is. That's what she was trying to do. And so she basically placed herself against the U.S. efforts and sided with the enemy to basically become a messenger of propaganda for the enemy. Essentially, is what she did, and so she got the nickname Hanoi Jane because of that. But yeah, that's what's going on. I mean, since day one, that narrative has been going on since day one. Since the war started, it's been this is bad. We're losing. Like it's kind of like it's the same messaging they did with Israel and Gaza. Day one of the war, they were already screaming genocide in Gaza. Like they just start this messaging, and the whole point of the messaging is to just influence public opinion. It has nothing to do with what's true. It has nothing to do with journalism or reporting. It is simply trying to drive public opinion and drive public opinion against the effort. That's all it is. And that's why I call them Hanoi Jane, because they're simply just trying to work against the U.S. effort. That's all.
Do you think it's just flat out false propaganda? Is that what you're insinuating?
It is. Now you can question, okay, what are the strategic gains? But this is what I'll say: stop listening to what the Iranian regime says in the public.
Yeah, but it's not the Iranian regime, Kevin. It's people like Tucker Carlson and other
True, but
American. There's American voices, and this guy that quit I don't know what he quit, the CIA, the FBI. I don't know what he quit, but I can't remember his name. The
guy with the long hair.
He's kind of got curly hair. I forget. He's
curly hair, long curly.
He's making the rounds right now.
I don't listen to that guy. He's using his credentials to just say a lot of wrong stuff. But this when I say the Iranian regime, the reason people say, oh, we're losing or nothing has changed, is because they're listening to the statements coming from the Iranian regime. And they go like, oh man, they are fighting back. Oh man, they're really tough. Or like they're putting their feet down. They're going to always say that to the public. You have no clue what they're agreeing to or surrendering behind the scenes. No clue. But no matter what happens behind the scenes, they're going to talk a big and tough game in public, because that's what authoritarian regimes do. So you can't listen to what they say in the public. It's almost like, this is something we've known for. This has always been the case, whether it was, this Iranian regime before they got taken out, or whether it was just any number of leaders that we were in opposition to. Their whole point is, they have to rule through strength. They can't show weakness. And so publicly, they're always strong. They're always saying the strong. They're always deaf to America and whatever they got to say to be strong in front of their people and keep their messaging going. But behind the scenes, they're cooperating.
So you're not convinced that we're losing right now.
How are we losing? Losing what? They are decimated. How are we losing? This has been a military success, right?
Yeah, but the Strait of Hormuz,
no matter how you weigh the scales,
and
but that just justifies why we did it. The threat of Iran could always do this, and imagine if they were doing this without us taking out all of their other stuff, right? The reason Iran was an issue because they could always close the Strait of Hormuz. That's the problem. And that's why they needed to be dealt with, because they could hold people hostage just like they're doing now. And so this is just a justification for the actions. But the question is how long could they do it now, right? It's It's just a matter of resolve. And that's the issue we have. They have more resolve than us. And that's the whole purpose of propaganda. The whole purpose of propaganda is to kill our resolve to continue, right? And so they can just simply outlast us. And that's part, you can say that's working, but the people who are claiming we're losing are the reason we're losing, because they're the messengers of the propaganda and the messengers of, you know, of killing the wheel for us to continue and push through and, you know, and everything else. It's simply doing it through the press. And so, but from a military standpoint, no, we're not losing. What we're losing, and this is what Charlie Kirk told Benjamin Netanyahu, you're just losing the messaging battle.
So we might be losing the propaganda battle, but not the physical battle. All right.
Yes. And then people complain about when the United States or Israel puts out propaganda. It's like, we have to, because you're too stupid listening to the propaganda from the other side. We have to have counter propaganda to counter the propaganda. You know, like, but it's like, oh, look at them putting out this propaganda. This is, oh, look at the, it's like, we wouldn't have to if you didn't believe nonsense. Like, we're losing the war.
So not all, it sounds like what you're saying there is not all propaganda is false. Some of it is true.
No, right. Absolutely. And I say it should not be called propaganda. It's just controlling the narrative.
Okay.
Who controls the narrative? The narrative can be true or it can be false. And typically, you know, when it's coming, like, you know, Iran put out that propaganda video. I don't know if you ever saw it, where they were talking. Basically, they basically tied themselves to all the other oppressed people that America has, you know, Japan and all. And they, you know, it's kind of like we're fighting for all of us, you know.
Yeah, well, Japan might have something to say about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, here's a comment that we're getting a lot right now at the ministries. It's just really hard to know who to listen to. So let's play.
I know, and that's the whole part. That's the point. That is the point.
That is the point, is to cause a bit of societal destabilization, because there's so much misinformation or so much competing information that you end up confused. You don't know what to do. You emotionally feel frustrated, and then you just kind of give up on even trying. So let's listen to a reliable voice, our friend Chuck Holton.
If there are essentially three classes of leadership in Iran today, there is the clerical leadership. That's the Ayatollah Khamenei was. The Ayatollah Khamenei, his son, is now the supreme leader there. And all of the Ayatollahs that are under him, because there are a lot of Ayatollahs in Iran. There are about 10,000 of those guys. So if we want to bomb all of them, we got a big job ahead of us. We've probably only taken out about the top 100 or so so far. So we got a long way to go before we bomb our way out of that. And in order to track all of those guys down and bring them in for, you know, justice or put a bullet into them, it would take 1 million troops or more on the ground to track all these guys down all over the country. And that's just not really feasible. We don't necessarily need to do that to sort of neuter those clerical guys, because we can empower the Iranian people to do so, and they will do it for us. However, then it comes to the IRGC, and that's who's actually pulling the strings in Iran right now. We know that because the third group of leaders in Iran, which is made up of the secular leadership, like the president, Pezeshkian, the president actually there was a leaked phone call. I think the IDF actually intercepted a phone call from Pezeshkian to one of his people, and he was complaining and saying, nobody listens to me. The IRGC is just doing whatever they want. If they don't negotiate a ceasefire in the next 3 weeks, we are done. We're cooked, because our economy can only survive for another 3 weeks, and then you're going to see total collapse in Iran. That was what he said on the phone. But he pointed out that he doesn't actually have any power to affect that, because even if he were to go to the United States and say, okay, we're willing to make a deal, the IRGC won't listen to him. And so it's really the IRGC that has the power inside in Iran right now. And when you're talking about the IRGC, they have between 250,000 and 500,000 people. And it doesn't matter how many troops we put on the ground. There's no possible way we would ever track down and eliminate all of those guys. So got to be there's got to be a way to negotiate with what Pete Hegseth called the third string, or the third regime. So what he was talking about is that we have affected regime change in a way, because we've taken out the initial Ayatollah, who was the supreme leader. We've taken out the next guy after him, and now they're on the third supreme leader since this war started, and that guy hasn't been seen yet because he's injured. So there are people who have sway over the IRGC, who can give orders to the IRGC, who are, according to the Trump administration, gladly negotiating with us for some sort of off-ramp. Bears pointing out that those guys themselves, Ghalibaf and Aragachi, are saying, we're not negotiating with anybody. The United States is negotiating with itself, apparently, because we're definitely not negotiating for anybody. In the press briefing this morning, Pete Hegseth was asked about that, and he said, well, look, those people are not going to admit that they are negotiating with us because it'll probably get them killed. And so, you know, what they're saying in private is different from what they're saying in public. And that was echoed by a press briefing that was given by Carolyn Levitt. That was also echoed on the Sunday talk shows by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. And so this is the position of the Trump administration. Yes, they are talking to us, but no, we can't tell you who it is exactly. And yes, they are denying it in public, but they're in private actually coming to us.
So very similar to what you're saying, Kevin. And
yeah, and I didn't see that clip, and I hadn't even seen the clips he's referring to, like Hegseth and them say that. I just know how these regimes work and operate. They're never going to come out and say they're negotiating or they're cutting a deal, or because like they intercepted phone call he's talking about. People talking about the Strait of Hormuz, like Iran depends on that. They have to get their oil out. Their whole economy is based on oil, and so they can't just lock down and hold on. They can only last so long. But if we just keep going, they're gonna be done. But he's right about the IRGC running things. The president and the parliament, that part of the government has no power. It just doesn't. The Ayatollah, who controlled the IRGC, is who runs that country. It is an Islamic republic. And they got a front government with a president and a parliament. The way it's structured in their constitution, the Ayatollah has like veto power over everything. And so
but they're on the third Ayatollah since the war started.
and he's injured. He almost got
we
killed.
don't know where he is, or
no,
if he's just like a stomp, like he's got no legs, no arms.
And we
like,
recently took out.
Yeah,
we recently took out the head of the IRGC, and so eventually they're going to run out of people to give orders. But right now they're still doing whatever they can. Like they're literally just doing whatever they can. They're firing a couple of rockets here and a couple of rockets there, and they're just trying to hold on.
Well, now Trump's approach seems to be to call Europe and say, like, look, you want this oil, you come defend the Strait of Hormuz. Like,
I'm not mad at that.
We don't need this oil.
Because it's the thing. And the minute we started this campaign, our European and Canadian partners were kind of like, yeah, this needed to happen. They were never going to support it, But then once it happened, it was like, yeah, the Iranian regime is bad and it needs to go.
This is another like in private we say this and in public we say this, because in public they are not for the war, but in private they've got to know like this needs to happen. But somebody's going to have to step up and take care of the Strait of Hormuz and make sure that it stays stable and exert enough power to stabilize that. Because and if people don't want the US to be the police of the world, then some other people are going to have to step up. We don't get our oil from there.
No.
So I don't know. We'll see what Trump says tonight. He's going to give a big speech in a couple of hours. So
looking forward to it.
Yeah. You got any speculations as to what he's going to say?
I know him. He's been talking about us leaving in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. I will say this though. The Iranian regime leaders aren't going to say, yeah, we're negotiating and yeah, we're trying to get a ceasefire and yeah, we want to get out of this. Like they're not going to say, they're going to say the tough thing in public. But it's one of those things of you have to give them an off ramp. And what I mean by that is you can't embarrass them in the public either. Right. And so one of the issues is Trump talks too much. Like he should not be saying, because
he does like to talk.
It's an honor culture, right? And you have to look strong. And if someone is forcing you to look weak in the public, you got to do I got to fight harder now because you're trying to make me like a punk.
Yeah.
And I can't like a punk to my people and rule.
One last question before we change gears here. Natalie's asking, she heard that Trump's going to put troops on the ground. Is that true?
I mean, it could be. Honestly, I haven't been engaged today. I haven't, been able to sit and scroll and do a lot of stuff.
So really cagey about it. He is sending like the Rangers or something to parachute in, but there's all the speculation like where are they going to parachute into? Is it that island?
I'll put like this: if we are going to do somewhere else. This is what I will say. If we are going to do some type of ground operations, limited operations, I hope he doesn't announce that. Once again, stop talking so much. Like, just stop. Like, we do things in the shadow for a reason. Like,
element of surprise.
Yes, we do not need things announced. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so a question I had asked you last week, someone else is asking here. Why are our gas prices so high if we have our own oil or Venezuelan oil? Like, why? What's our issue here? Why did I just go pay $6.20 for gas?
Well, first of all, because you live in California.
That's right. Gavin Newsom, our lovely governor who wants to be your president, has shut down almost all of the oil refineries in the state of California. We have like 2 left. And so if you want America to be California, make sure to vote for Gavin Newsom. Go ahead.
It is because oil prices, it's a global market, right? And so anytime there is a short of supply, it affects supply and demand. And so OPEC, who sets the prices for how much oil costs, that's not dependent upon where we get our oil and where we don't get our oil. The price is set through OPEC. Because it's a global oil market. And so, that's why what happens over there affects us. It just does. And that's what I want people to understand. It's like, we are not immune to what happens in the rest of the world. Right. So
you're not suggesting that isolationism doesn't work, are you?
That's 100% what I'm suggesting. It doesn't work.
You're not just suggesting it. You're telling us
it doesn't. You can't. Right. It's one of those things of you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. We're not going back to a pre-modern world where we're not connected to other nations, and like it just doesn't. We're in a global economy now. You don't have to have globalism in terms of governing. We don't have to listen to the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum and all. That's nonsense. But from an economic standpoint, are we going to always forever be tied to other nations? Absolutely. It's just
Yeah.
we just are.
We can't get around it.
You can't get around
Isolationism
it. Yeah.
is not going to work in our current technological state. Like this isn't 1888 anymore.
No.
Okay, so I want to tackle some of these questions that we just keep getting over and over at the ministry. People saying that Trump is, first of all, owned by Bibi Netanyahu. He is a simp for Bibi. He's controlled by Bibi. And the only reason we are in this war is Bibi's got something on Trump. I don't know if he's got dirty, naked pictures of him or he's got some kind of thing on Trump. But this is Israel's war, and they are forcing us into it. And then now this clip is circulating this week on X from like 1987.
The presidency. I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in a war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we
in,
take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to have a war. And it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations. And I mean grab it and keep it. And get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
Yes, Trump has been hawkish on Iran since the 80s. Since the Islamic Revolution of 79, when they took our hostages at the embassy, Trump has been very hawkish against Iran. And so yeah.
Bibi owning him back then in the 80s.
This is what I would tell people. Stop listening to people like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and when people say they don't know who to listen to, I'm telling you, this is who you don't listen to. You don't listen to those people. They know absolutely nothing about foreign policy, military affairs, military strategy, intelligence. They know nothing. They are people with a mic, with an audience, and they get to say, and they are paid. And I truly believe these people are paid to spread certain messages. But yeah, that is simply, they're simple. As I said many times, all they're trying to do is sway public opinion to force the foreign policy outcome they themselves want, right? And what they want is isolationism. What they want is us to pull back from the world and not engage in anything. And they call it America first, but they're so ignorant of geopolitics, they don't understand that there are consequences for that as well, which may not be good for America, because it wouldn't be good for America.
It's long-term unsustainable. I mean,
yes.
It makes you, it sounds good. It makes you feel good. We'll be safe. We'll be insulated. But you've persuaded me. I mean, in the beginning, when you and I started having these conversations, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how we were connected to this bigger global picture. But you've persuaded me that isolationism is something that sounds nice, but in the real world, things are not sugar, spice, and everything nice. And we have to have a strong presence. Otherwise, our way of life, the very thing that the America First people want to protect, will go away. It'll just go away against our will. If we're strong and engaged, then we can have a seat at the table and we can continue to try to fight to preserve our culture, our country, and our way of life. And that's just the hard truth that we have to sit in. Now, I admit, 6 months ago, I did not understand this. 3 years ago, when the Israel war started and you and I sat down and started having these conversations, I did not understand it. So I've gone from ground zero to where I'm at now. But you have persuaded me that the quote unquote America First strategy of Nick Fuentes and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and those people, that sounds nice, but it will not work.
Yes, it is. It is a foolish position to have. It's just as ideologically foolish as the left, right? Where their ideology drives their policy, not reality. You know, um, yeah. This is what I'll say. Anybody who positions you to believe that Israel is the enemy, right? When we're talking about America, we're talking about who's the enemy, who we're opposing. Anyone who's trying to make Israel the focus and primary enemy of America, don't listen to those people. It's the same way I would say anyone who has turned the narrative for us to be focused on Turning Point USA after Charlie's murder rather than the political left and all that was done, the political violence. People who have turned the narrative to our friends and allies are people you should not listen to, because essentially all they're doing is working for the enemy. That's all they're doing.
Whether they're getting money from them or not, it almost doesn't even matter. They're
look at Tucker
working for them
Carlson.
by pushing out the messaging.
Yeah, but look how Tucker Carlson has become an apologist for Islam.
It's weird.
It's
super
nuts.
Weird. Yeah.
This man said Islam is closer to Christianity than Judaism.
I don't know what world he's living in, but okay. All right. Let me raise another issue.
Okay.
So
all right, let's go.
The first one was Trump is controlled by Bibi. This is Israel's war. Kind of address that. Let me give you another one. Let's talk about the financial and military aid to Israel. Israel is holding us hostage because, we send them all this aid, and the AIPAC is buying off all of our politicians. How do you answer that?
I mean, AIPAC is a real, legit lobby group, just like every other. You go to DC is just full of lobbyists. That's all it is, that lobby Congress and politicians to do things on their behalf. That's what DC is. So yeah, AIPAC is one of them, but it's one of those things of you, and this is what so much is driven just simply by anti-Israel sentiment, right? Whether it's anti-Semitism or not, it is an anti-Israel sentiment. And what these people never question or answer or give any kind of thoughtful answer to is, does Israel play a role in U.S. foreign policy in terms of when we look at our strategic goals throughout the world and throughout the region of the Middle East? Does Israel play a role? Like, people act like we control Israel, but act like Israel control us. They never consider the fact that we might be controlling Israel and using Israel to work on our behalf, right?
Yeah. That we might have common interests.
We have common interest.
This is notice that we haven't said anything about Genesis 12 or anything biblical. We're just purely talking pragmatism. Like,
yes,
we are not simping for Israel on this show based on Genesis 12. We think that people can have differing opinions on that. Christians have differing opinions. We're just simply looking at it from a strategy level of
Israel's an ally, just like Germany's an ally. Like, these are allies. And yeah, we don't always agree. Sometimes, I'm gonna tell you right now. So there are countries that we have closer allies. So we have what we call the Five I Nations, which is the old British Empire. So you got the United States, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Those are our closest held allies. It's the old British Empire. Then outside of that, you got NATO. And then beyond that, you probably have Israel somewhere in there, right? Israel is not they're our closest ally in the region, along with Saudi Arabia. But in terms of just American allies, no, it's the old British Empire. That's our closest ally. That's who we trade secrets with and all types of stuff. But there are countries that we are friends with that we don't fully trust. Israel, we don't fully trust Israel from an intelligence standpoint, right?
They spy on us and we spy on them.
Yeah, but you know who else does? The French. France. We don't trust France. Like,
we spy on them. They spy on us.
Yeah, like we don't trust the French. Like there are frenemies and like it's a complicated picture, and people just don't understand. But like, no, we're not controlled by Israel. We have mutual interest. We have because we have mutual enemies, and also regardless of what the new Christian right wants to believe, we have a civilizational commonality of, and I know people don't like the hyphenated term, but Judeo-Christian values and worldview, right? Based on Old Testament laws and scripture. And like we have commonality. And so that's why we have worked together. And that's why, Israel is the little Satan and we're the great Satan. And
I just think a world where Judaism and Christians live side by side, I think will flourish better than Muslims, especially like Shia Muslims, that are a death cult. Like I don't think that's going to lead to human flourishing. Now, AIPAC, just as a quick Google search, according to Open Secrets, donated in the 2023-24 cycle $42 million toward House candidates. 23 million went to Democrats, 19 million went to Republicans. But just to try to compare, in 2017, Qatar spent roughly 250 million lobbying in Washington to influence public policy. So like everybody right now is just fixated on AIPAC, but we're not talking about, well, there's other countries in the Middle East that have an interest in influencing our policy, and they give hundreds of millions more than AIPAC. Yeah. And AIPAC is actually technically an American-based lobby system. So, I don't know why we're so fixated on AIPAC and we're not talking about Qatar and Saudi Arabia and other places, but
because there's an anti-Israel sentiment, and I'm just going to there's an anti-Jewish sentiment. It's the whole trope, the Jews control everything and the Jews influence and the Jewish money. And like, it's just, people won't look at things objectively, Like I say, you go to DC is nothing but lobbyists. The county around DC is the richest county in America for a reason. Right. There's a lot of money, and money drives politics. And so if you don't like it, blame your congressperson, blame your senator, right? That's all I can say. But hyper fixating on Israel and AIPAC it's like silly. It's a small part. Get rid of them, nothing changes. Exactly. The problem. Yeah, DC is still DC. It's still a swamp full with lobbyists, and so like it just doesn't make sense outside of people have become hyper fixated on Israel.
Okay, let me give you a third one.
Okay,
as this idea that Christians are obsessed with Jews having a biblical right to the land, and that, especially dispensationalists, they're completely obsessed with this. They constantly quote Genesis 12, and that nobody can object to Jews because the dispensationalists are just obsessed with Israel. So that's why, we need to just get off of this, because really Christians and Judaism have nothing to do with each other. They're totally separate religions, and Judaism is just a bunch of Satanists anyways. And so we should really just stop supporting them as Christians. That's kind of the narrative.
Yeah, but nobody complains about us giving money to Egypt. Like,
do we give money to Egypt?
Absolutely, we do. We give money to a lot of countries, and
we train a lot of memes about that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't see about Israel.
Egypt's a big military ally of ours. People don't know that. But No, so I'm not going to get into the whole dispensational and the land and this is the thing, because you can't go back and undo 1948. You can't go back
Exactly.
and undo Israel becoming a state and declaring their independence or whatever. You can't go back and undo that. The point is the nation exists today.
We have to be
And
in the current reality of things.
yes, the current reality. And this idea of should it exist, does it have a right to exist and all, that's just, I mean, does Saudi Arabia have a right? Does Jordan? I use Jordan because you got to remember the British and the French created all of these nations, right?
Exactly.
Does
Not
Iraq
just
have a right
Israel.
to exist? Yeah.
Not
Now it wasn't just Israel. Jordan got created, Syria, Lebanon,
Syria, Lebanon.
yeah.
Yeah.
All these countries got created by the French and the British. Pakistan
After
didn't
the
exist.
fall of the Ottoman Empire, then they kind of
Yes.
divvied it all up.
They divided up, divided up, drew borders and lines, and caused a lot of problems with the lines they drew because they kind of didn't really use like geopolitical lines. But yeah, Pakistan didn't exist. They created Pakistan. And so Israel's the only one that people want to fixate on. And I get it based on the way it's become a huge political thing since 1948. But it just is what it's irrelevant to rehash whether Israel have a right to exist or not. Like it exists. And
Here we are.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
yeah, and this is the thing. No one wants to destroy it except for leftist progressives and the Iranian regime. That's it. The progressive left, because of their whole fixation on the Palestinians, which isn't a thing, and the Iranian regime. Every other Arab Muslim nation has made peace with Israel and is an ally of Israel today, except for Iran and a leftist nut job Marxist professor and their students. That's it.
Well, and the horseshoe theory of the new right is, that is obsessed with anti-Israel propaganda. But I guess the way I look at it from a theological perspective is there is this weird kind of movement of, anti-Jew, anti-Israel type of sentiment, even if you're not a dispensationalist. I mean, there's a lot of Christians who are like, look, I don't know if it's a great idea to completely denigrate Jewish people. Like, we have a very special and unique relationship with them, and we can maintain a level of civility and respect, and we can debate the point about whether or not they have a biblical claim to the land. But even if I don't look at it that way, and I look at it purely from a secular standpoint, I think that human history is full of empires that rise and fall, and they rise and fall through war. And Israel has fought multiple wars against its neighbors and won. So even if you don't like 1948 and you don't like what the UN did in giving them their own country, they have maintained their country and their sovereignty through blood and treasure. And so, if nothing else, I think that just like any other nation on the earth, they've earned the right to exist because they fought multiple wars to defend themselves. I am agnostic about the biblical claims. I do think on Romans 11, like, I am hopeful for a great revival among Jewish people, that they would embrace the Messiah, Jesus as the Messiah. I am uncertain and agnostic about the land claim from a biblical standpoint.
Same here.
But from a geopolitical standpoint, in my mind, maybe there were some shady things that were done in 1948 and how Jews got land, and we can debate all those points and how things went down. But I don't think anyone can deny that they've defended their country for 70 years through multiple wars. Here they are
I would say defensive wars, right? They've been attacked and defended themselves. That's been the history. Even this war, I've told people this war with Iran is simply a continuation of their response to October 7th. It just is, And so it's one of those things of what's the alternative? From the river to the sea?
Yeah.
Hamas rule. No, and that's what I'll say. And regardless of biblical claims and dispensationalism, Jerusalem belongs to the Jews. I don't know who else we think Jerusalem's supposed to belong to. It's Jerusalem. It's Bethlehem.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Who does it belong to? It belongs to the Jewish people.
Okay, let's do a couple more of these real quick. What about this objection? We're sending too much money to Israel. We should be spending the money at home. What do you say about that? Because that's one I've brought up with you before. I distrust my government. We're frustrated that we're not taking care of our veterans and the homeless and the middle class, and we're doing everything for Israel. Look at how much money we're sending them for the military. This is ridiculous. This is Israel's war. Why we should be spending this money at home?
I'm going to quote my good friend Chad O. Jackson and say, hey, political right, Republicans, conservatives, stop sounding like socialists. Right? Oh, my problems will be solved if the government spent more money on the programs for me. Stop. Just stop. That is not the solution to your problems. The government, now we could talk about the government not spending money on Israel because you don't want them to take as many taxes from you. If that's an argument you're making, okay. But this idea that you want the government to do more, you want the government to spend more money. Like, if you look at the money the government spends on entitlements versus what we spend on defense and foreign aid, the entitlement spending way outweighs what the military is spending.
But see, I don't think most people know that. I did not know that until you brought that up to me and made that point. It's a very important point that the money we're sending to Israel is like a dot on a page compared to the money that we spend on entitlements within our own country.
100%.
And so this argument that well, if we stop sending money to Israel, then all our problems domestically would be solved. I'm not sure the numbers bear that out.
No. And I'll just look at all the money California spent on homelessness. Right. And look where homelessness is now. It's worse. Oh, they just came out that I don't know if you saw where New York spent $81,000 per homeless person, which is more than the median household income of New York. And they still haven't fixed. Like, this idea that if we just wasn't spending money on the military or foreign aid or all this kind of stuff, then we could solve all our problems. Like, money is the problem. We're not giving enough money. Like, people, stop sounding like the left. Stop being socialist. Stop thinking the government is the solution to your problems. It is not.
We have spent, just for a frame of reference, we've spent $300 billion sent it to Israel since World War II. This is just a quick AI overview. It says it's from congress.gov. $300 billion since 1948.
So,
okay. Yeah. In 2023, we sent them roughly around $20 billion. Okay.
That's sock money.
Yeah.
That's
in 2020 fiscal year 2025, we spent 1.2 trillion on welfare. Okay. So when people are coming at you and saying, well, what about all the money that we're sending to Israel? It's wrong. Okay. We are sending some money there, but maybe a way to think about it is it's strategic help for an ally that is closer to the issue than we are and can kind of be a line of defense before things get to us. But it is potatoes compared to what we spend on welfare programs.
And it's not just money we're handing them just to hand them. It's more like a voucher. Basically, we give them an allotment of money that they then turn around and spend on buying U.S. military equipment from us. Right. So that's all it is. You can essentially
they're using our money to buy our equipment.
Yeah. So the government is giving them money. So you can say the military industrial complex, you can say defense companies are benefiting, but yeah, we give them money and then they turn around to US defense companies and they buy F-35s and they buy all this type of stuff. That's what it's for. That's it. And so people, you can make the argument that, well, it comes back to us, it comes back to our economy, blah, 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 but we're not just handing them money and say, hey, here you go for existing. No, it's an arms deal, essentially what it is.
That's good. Okay, now people are texting me who have my number with questions. Ask Kevin, who's behind the anti-Israel propaganda and why? It's everywhere.
I'm going to focus on the political right because we know the political left is the political left. The political right, the only people I can think of, I mean, Qatar is obviously an issue. Qatar spending money is an issue. We know Russia is an issue in terms of when, what's her name? Laura Chan. Yeah. She got in trouble because basically the Russians were paying her to platform conservatives. And so, there are foreign agents out there who are intentionally causing this type of dissension in America. And that's from an outside perspective. From an inside perspective, why would Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson do it? And Nick Fuentes, why would they do it? I would say their own greed and power. And this is why I say that. Charlie Kirk gets assassinated. Jordan Peterson faces health problems. And Dennis Prager also faces health problems. So those three big voices are out the way. Who's going to fill that vacuum? And so now you got people posturing, trying to fill the vacuum and decide which way the conservative movement is going to go. And that's what a lot of this is about, and they don't care about America. They don't care about, Nick Fuentes is talking about everybody go vote Democrat. Right.
I don't understand that strategy at all.
It's horrible. These people are just self-serving. It's all self-serving. They don't care about what's true, no matter how much Candace Owens tries to convince you she's only seeking the truth. She's not. This is pure just self-interest is what I'll say. So
I want to tell people that on X now, Elon put a new feature where you can click on a profile and see what country they're from.
Yes.
And what happened in the early days of implementing this a few months ago is that you would click on people's profile that would say like such and such patriot, Yes. And then you look at it, now you can see, oh, they're in Pakistan or they're in Russia. And so the rumors that some of this energy at least is foreign powers, which is something you've been saying for a while, turned out to be true. That but then it gets picked up by Americans who kind of join in the conversation and start reading this propaganda and believing it, and then they hear it repeated by Megyn Kelly and Nick Fuentes and stuff, and it must be true. And so
and then some influencers only care about growth and likes and clicks. They care nothing. They don't care about anything else. It's just money. Ian Carroll and all of those people like that. They're going to say the most inflammatory thing. Even from a Joel Webbin perspective. Joel Webbin is simply trying to build a platform for himself.
That's the thing is we don't know who the money is behind some of these people, but they just kind of come out of nowhere. They got big platforms. They get pushed out a lot. I have questions. So yeah, this is good. All right. One last question and then we're going to sign off. What about the objection that Israel just bombs children? They're engaging in genocide and civilian casualties in Gaza, bombing the hospital. They just bomb children randomly. It's horrible. Every Christian should be against genocide and bombing children. What say you, Kevin?
Yeah. Anytime you hear the words genocide and children, just stop listening. Because those are words that are simply meant to drive your emotions. That's it. Because only children got bombed, only children died. Why are they so hyper focused on saying children? Because it's to drive your emotions. And so I'll just play a little game. It's a number.
But that's Candace Owens' big argument. She always is talking about the children.
I know. But I'm just gonna so you gotta understand how difficult it is to conduct urban warfare and this is the thing too. They never blame the enemy. Like, so there's just two standards. There's a standard that Israel and America must hold, and no one else has to hold it, right? So, for instance, have you seen anyone complain about Iranian rockets landing in neighborhoods, civilian areas, hitting apartment buildings, hitting hotels? Has anyone threw a fit and called for war crimes from Iran for launching missiles at non-military targets? Absolutely not.
There's no screaming on the left or on the new right about the amount of bombs that Iran has been sending into actual civilian targets. That is like, well, where's the energy now? It does come across as a little hypocritical.
It is, because they don't care. That's what people need to understand. These people do not care. They simply use things for their own political purposes and gain. That's it. That is all politics for them. They don't care about moral principles. It's about what can they use to drive their own agenda. That's all it is. But with that said, it's hard to fight an enemy in an urban context that, number one, hides and fights amongst civilians. Number two, does not wear a uniform. And so you're talking about a military target. If I get a Hamas fighter that fires a rocket or RPG at me from an apartment building, guess what that apartment building now is? A military target, right? And there's no way to determine who's inside, how many people are inside, but you're taking fire from a civilian infrastructure. You have to return fire on that. But no one's going to blame Hamas for fighting from civilian infrastructure. They're only going to use it to blame Israel, for the deaths that come from it. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just politics. These people care nothing about what is true, what is reality. But even still, I'm going to say this. Israel carried out the most successful urban conflict in the history of the world. And this is why I say that. Because the Gaza Health Ministry released the numbers for deaths. And that number is around 70,000. I think it was like 72,000 deaths. And that's since October 2023, whenever Israel started responding. 70,000 deaths. And that includes combatants. So we don't know how many of those were Hamas fighters, how many are civilians, but 70,000 people got killed. Let's just give the benefit of the doubt and say Israel was really, like, half the people were civilians. 35,000 deaths over 2 years of conflict in an urban dense environment of 2 million people. Do you know how, that is success? That is such a low number. And think about that number. Let's say it was 35,000 civilians over 2 years in a span in a population of 2 million. Now go back and roll back to those people saying genocide and see how silly this claim of genocide actually sounds, right? Anyone who says genocide, and it should never be listened to again. You should just completely not ever listen to those people again, because they're not giving you what is true. So either they're lying to you or they have no discernment, because there's no evidence of genocide actually happening. And so, it's just not true. It's just like with the Iran stuff. It's simply propaganda to drive public opinion against the effort. That's all it is. And we keep falling for it because we're good people. We're soft-hearted. We're Christians. We don't want to see anyone hurt. And so they know that, and they play on that. They don't care. We're talking about 35,000 over 2 years. The Iranian regime killed 30,000 of their own citizens in 2 weeks, and no one said anything.
Well,
They don't say-
that's another point of like, this looks a little hypocritical that in January and February, the Iranian government killed somewhere between 10 and 30,000 of its own citizens. I just don't see a lot of screaming and protests about
this.
that.
And this is how bad it was. This is what they were doing. And so they were firing live rounds. They were firing bird shots, so like spray pellets, like at people. And then when people showed up at the hospital with those wounds, they were going in the hospital and executing those people because they okay, you got shot, you were at the protest, I shot, okay, and they were going in the hospital and finishing those people off, right? That's the Iranian regime. There's no marching on universities. There's no, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, and there's no how could they, and no condemnation. There's nothing. It's silence. It's simply silence because they do not care.
It doesn't seem very principled.
It's not principled.
Yeah.
They're not. They are not principled. It is propaganda and politics. And people need to get smart on that. Stop letting people drive your emotions. That's all I'll say.
But we saw that quote earlier from the New York Magazine or whatever. And it was like the death rates of American soldiers are going to skyrocket. Well,
yeah.
We've had
based on what?
14?
Based on what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about right now.
But people will read that. They'll get emotional about it. They'll believe it.
Yeah.
And it's done its job. It doesn't have to be true. That's the thing for it to be effective.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. Always love playing geopolitical whatnot with you. It's been informative. Hopefully people have appreciated. I feel like one of the big themes of this conversation is about discernment versus propaganda.
It is.
So
yeah.
Great engagement in the chat. Thank you everyone for weighing in. And we will see you, God willing, next week.